It's been about a month since Apple launched the M2 iPad Air. Let's see if it's worth picking up in this long-term review. Before we get too deep, be sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss my latest video. So the new iPad Air, it looks just like an iPad. This time though, it comes in two sizes, both an 11-inch and a 13-inch version. They're effectively the same physical size as the 2022 iPad Pros. Here, I've got the 13-inch version in blue. The other colors include purple, starlight, and space gray. I'm not sure why Apple decided it needs to drastically reduce the saturation on these new colors. I kind of hate how this blue basically just looks like silver. The last gen Air looks so much better. This was such a more beautiful hue of blue. What do you guys think of the colors? Do you want to see like the more vibrant, saturated colors, or you prefer these more dull ones? Let me know in the comments. Other physical features here include a pair of stereo speakers. There is more bass on the 13-inch version, which for sure helps, and Touch ID is baked into the sleep wake button. Fairly kind of standard stuff if you've been paying attention to iPads. This time, Apple relocated the front-facing camera, sticking it on the landscape side versus the top portrait side. The idea is more people are using their tablets horizontally, so the camera position needs to be adjusted. I see this as a net positive, and it makes it way easier to be looking at the camera than awkwardly off to the side. On the inside, Apple moved to the M2 chip, which is also not especially new, but it is a powerful chip, and I'll tell you now, it's more than enough for your average user. We've seen the M2 before, including in the last generation iPad Pros, but this is a bin version that includes a 9-core GPU, despite Apple originally saying it was a 10-core. With the updated iPad Air, you can use Apple's Magic Keyboard or your choice of Apple Pencil USB-C, or Apple Pencil Pro. Apple Pencil Pro is a delight to use, and the squeeze gesture is game changer. I haven't used the barrel roll feature all that much, but I'm not an artist, and they'll probably make better use of it than I. If you're debating between the USB-C version and the Apple Pencil Pro, I'd highly recommend the latter. The magnetic charging and pairing make it worth it, not counting the additional gestures and Find My support. As I'm diverging into accessories, one thing that I find particularly irksome is that the iPad Air frustratingly only supports the last generation Magic Keyboard. If you'll recall, I talked about how the iPad Air is basically the same design and internals as the 2022 iPad Pro. Well, this is the keyboard for that old iPad Pro. That would be understandable on its own, but what's so annoying is that the new Magic Keyboard is markedly better, but priced the same. That means you're getting a worse product. It's heavier, less durable, has a smaller trackpad, and lacks function keys for the same price as the new one. The new iPad Pros are quite a bit thinner and have relocated magnets, so I understand why they won't work together, but the least Apple could do would be cut the price point even by like $50 here. Other improvements to the new iPad Air include moving to Wi-Fi 6E and double the base storage. You can pick up an iPad Air starting with 128 gigs, and it has a new max capacity of 1 terabyte, up from 256. So let's get into using the new iPad Air. It's been several weeks since the Air launched, and I've been using it as my primary tablet. I read on it, edit video for socials, write content, and play games. The 10-core M2 holds up just fine. I didn't run into anything that it felt underpowered for. Frankly, and I know you've probably heard this before, iPadOS seems to be the limit more than anything. I can multitask better with the 13-inch screen though, so that's a perk. Speaking of which, it isn't nearly as good as the OLED of the iPad Pro, and it lacks ProMotion. It still looks solid and boasts 600 nits of brightness, HDR, and True Tone. I do notice the fixed 60 Hz refresh rate at times, but not enough for me to be really put off by it. I think it's just fine. Look, the more I used the new iPad Air, the more I wasn't sure what to think. My main thought remains unchanged. The iPad Air is the iPad for almost everyone. If somebody asks me which iPad to get, I tell them to pick up a iPad Air, if not the last generation iPad Pro. See, the iPad Air is all about democratizing the high-end tech that gets pioneered on iPad Pro. That makes the iPad Air feel boring. It really has nothing new to present on its own. And I understand that iPad Air buyers aren't usually frequent upgraders, but I can't imagine anybody who has an M1 iPad Air who would want to move to this M2 version. This is solely targeting people with more legacy devices or new users in general. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just a little boring. The best new feature is probably that 13-inch display. It looks great and is cheaper than a 13-inch iPad Pro. To me, that's a win. If you're interested in the new iPad Air, I put some discount links down below in the description. Otherwise, as usual, please be sure to subscribe, turn those notifications on, and I'll catch you in the next video.